was seeing in my feed here. So Joe Rogan uploaded a video yesterday on DMT, which is a cousin to the ayahuasca experience.
Yes. Yeah. Have you ever done DMT?
No, not straight like that. A friend of mine has. The DMT, they call it the spirit molecule.
Yeah, the spirit molecule. It's supposedly
taps you into your center.
Guys are just, I don't even know.
Oh, I love the study of drugs. Love it. I want to know about every drug in existence. Do you ever watch Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia on Viceland?
No. I mean, what I find fascinating about drugs is the actual healing benefit behind what goes on.
Basically, what this show is every episode, this guy goes and explores a different drug, and it's the most obscure things you've probably never heard of, and basically he looks into its origin, how it's grown, how it's made, how it's sold, and how it's bought, and how it trips, and like he does the drug. On every episode, he does every single drug.
And then documents it.
And you watch him do it, yeah.
Wow.
Right.
And it's fascinating. It's amazing.
Is he okay, though? Is it messing with his brain?
He's a really smart dude.
Right, but I mean, okay, so he does it once.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do it like a million times. He does it once.
No, he just does
for the experimental value of it, and then... But
you should watch the show.
Each one...
Yeah.
What is it called?
Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia.
Oh, Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia.
It's on Viceland.
Mm-hmm.
But after a few times of having done all of these, does he, do you see the effects on him after?
Doing a drug once won't,
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the drug. Every drug is different. Here's what I'll tell you. Drugs that are really, really crazy high levels of, serotonin, dopamine, like ecstasy and meth, and drugs like that. So basically, you have these dopamine receptors in your brain, and they look like this. And all day long, they pass around dopamine to each other. And that's your happiness level. So when you're happy, you have a little more dopamine. When you're sad, you have less dopamine. Mm-hmm. So when you do these drugs like those, your dopamine receptors are going twice as fast with twice the amount of dopamine, so you're like, oh my god, I'm so happy, da, 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 da. So then you go, I'm going to do it again, and your body starts to go, oh my gosh, this is way too much dopamine all the time. We'll start shutting down some of these receptors. So then the receptors start shutting down, so then when you do the drug, you're having a normal level of dopamine, and then when you're not on the drug, you have a very, very low level of dopamine. So you can't feel any sort of happiness or any sort of relief or satisfaction until you do the drug again, which is, that's the danger of prolonged use of those kinds of drugs.
Right. If he's doing it once, the question I'm asking, because I'm
not a scientist, so I don't know.
Well, ask over here. I have tons of background on this.
But the question I'm asking is, so he's trying one drug on each episode. I don't know how many episodes he's done. Maybe he's done 100. After 100 of doing all these different drugs, do you see the effect on him and his body and his cognitive,
I just had his channel pulled up. I closed it down, but it looks very well done. It looks very moderated. It looks, it looked very I don't know.
Or does he spread it long enough that he has time for his body to recover and then he's fine?
You should see if you know anyone on production on that show, because I don't know the answer to that, but he's incredibly knowledgeable. Yeah. He's very with it.
Yeah, and he's covering, I don't know, he's covering a full things. And he's actually has ayahuasca covered on here, PCP, season 2. It looks like he had some sort of, this was structure. I don't know, there's he's covering everything. Mm-hmm. I want to kind of touch on what you were talking about there. I think you couldn't complete your thought. I want to complete your thought for you.
Oh, what?
So you were talking about the dopamine receptors and what's going on there?
Yeah.
So you take a drug and your first experience is a very up one.
Euphoria, yeah.
Yeah, and then over prolonged use, it then becomes your new regular, and then when you don't have anything in you, you're feeling killed.
Yeah.
And you were talking to us about the receptors. So what also happens is when you take prescription drugs, okay, like Prozac or Zoloft, that same thing will go on. They are called SSRIs, so serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Well, it does just that. It's inhibiting the reuptake of your serotonin. This is a totally legal pharmaceutical, such as Zoloft, okay? And this SSRI does exactly what it promises. It blocks the intake of serotonin, and it does that by clogging up the ends of the receptors. This actually is a permanent condition. Those receptors do not regrow, and they cannot unclog. So that was actually, trip out on this. I had a harder time like getting off like pills that were prescribed to me by a fucking somebody that went to school for a bunch of years and had some shit on his chest that made him important. I've had a harder time in those situations than trying to like get off street drugs and clean my life up after that. Yeah. Because these things have a very exact effect on you. Yeah. The 500 milligrams is doing 500 milligrams worth of shit. Yeah. So and much in the same way, so like you were talking about dopamine, the one that comes to mind is like, let's say cocaine. Yeah. So cocaine is a direct hit of into your dopamine receptors. So that would cause this condition that we're talking about, either the overfiring when you're on the drug or the normal firing when you're off the drug, and whatever you're doing, it's killing the receptors or deregulating your production. So it can happen on both ends. Because it can create that same overflow of production by what that drug does, clogging up your receptors. So her question about, is this guy showing well, okay, obviously this is going to affect him, because each drug is hitting either a different receptor or in the production side. Because you can flood your serotonin by releasing all the serotonin into the brain, such as MDMA, or by Zoloft, by plugging up the receptors, it will still create that wealth of serotonin that the drug previously did. So to answer your question, he's actually probably fucking himself up even more because he's doing, I have it here, PCP, peyote,
everything. He does everything.
Yeah, toads, kratom, which is a very dangerous drug, bath salts, DMT. Yeah, so he's putting himself at risk here. I would think that there is like ambulatory care on site here or on scene, and I'm sure he's doing this under the direction, or under the, not direction, but under the observance of some sort of doctor.
Definitely.
Yeah, because if there's a camera crew and it's
they usually have medical professionals on the show to talk as well.
Right.
And I'm also hoping he gives his body time to recoup.
Sure, I'm sure he does. Yeah,
because their bodies are
resilient.
See,
I think what really damages people the most is long-term drug use.
Yeah.
Long-term drug use.
Ongoing, constant. Yeah.
Right. Yes. I think that has extremely damaging effects on a person. Yeah. Because then, as Stephanie brought up, then the getting off the drugs is another thing. It creates a deficiency, or in the way of the receptors, they don't regrow. Anyways, it's so yeah.